Welcome to the Prophets of IT, the podcast where we sit down with the smartest people in IT to pull out insights that actually move the needle. I'm your host, Jim Punzenberger, author of $0 Advertising Strategies, founder and creator of ManageProspectingSystem.com. Before we jump in, a quick word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by ManageProspectingSystem.com, a proven three-pillar system that helps IT service organizations with predictable leads through content, LinkedIn, and targeted email campaigns. Be sure to check out ManageProspectingSystem.com after the show. And I'm fired up because I got somebody in the hot seat who has worn just about every hat in this industry. He's a former Arthur Andersen consultant, ConnectWise IT Nation Innovation Award winner out of thousands of participants, by the way. And not to mention the voice behind MidDays with Gerard on SuperTalk Mississippi. Ladies and gentlemen, Gerard, say hi to the audience.
Hey, Jim. Hey, audience. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for your time and willingness to share. So before we get this rolling, I have to ask, um, you, your walk-up song is Faithfully by Journey. That's a great pick. Any story behind how you selected that?
Well, I've been a lifelong Journey fan, and of course, the song "Faithfully" from their Frontiers tour in 1983, and it's just one of those that I always associated with my marriage and my years of travel in business and my faithful loyalty to my wife. It's just a fantastic song. It's from the old arena rock era, and I still enjoy it and enjoy the band today.
Well, I enjoy it also, so a great pick. And so let's get into it. I talk to MSP owners every day, and the amount of business acumen, relationship management, problem solving that goes into running an IT services organization. Um, People outside the industry have really no idea what goes into it. And you've mentioned that there's also some misconceptions that go along with the industry. And I think I heard you say that Y2K wasn't a hoax. You want to walk us through that and how you came to those thoughts?
Yeah, great question, of course. So there are it's kind of a popular opinion that because it was ended up being a non-event, that it was a hoax. And I contend that the reason it was a non-event is because the professionals in the IT industry, and I'm talking about those that provide services to companies as and solutions to companies as well as those that work for those companies that are work side by side with their partners to implement and manage those solutions are really good. And this was a huge problem. It was a truly a problem. I personally wrote thousands of lines of COBOL and assembly language code on IBM mainframes that where the data sets were not Y2K compliant. We concerned ourselves with storage and the cost of storage, which was astronomical compared to today. So we had to be really efficient, and we didn't see any need to store the year in a full four-digit format. So yeah, it was pretty typical to store dates with a 2 year or two-digit year, not thinking about how that would be a problem 20 years down the
Uh-huh.
road, but it turned out there and it required remediation. My company actually delivered a number of Y2K remediation projects, and one of those was in the state of New Jersey, and that was for the New Jersey Department of Corrections. And so I actually traveled weekly from my home in Mississippi up to beautiful downtown Trenton, New Jersey, every week for about 26 months. to solve that problem and to oversee a major project to convert from their old legacy IBM mid-range systems to a more modern Oracle-based at the time client server environment that would solve that problem. So yeah, enormous pressure, as you can imagine, to get that done in time for the clock to turn over. There was an extensive, detailed contingency plan the state had in place for their 16 correctional institutions, which for the most part meant locking them down. That would have really been a bad thing when you can't transport the offenders that are housed there. So, knock on wood, fortunately, we were able to get that done in the nick of time. By November of 1999, we went live throughout the entire correctional system. So that's just one example. That's the biggest one that we took on. But we all worked our rears off, honestly, literally 7 days a week to get that done.
Yeah. Well, Y2K was like, I was in high school yet. So I was a senior in high school and that happened. I can remember I was working in the IT department. Like I was like uh, and had like an internship with the IT department of the high school. And there was a few things that they were doing, but it didn't end up in I think because of all the vendors had everything, were on top of everything for
Yeah.
the school district, it didn't end up being a big deal.
Yeah, that's right. We were able to head it off. We did hospitals, banks, I mean, super mission critical environments that just simply could not afford to go down. But a lot of planning, a lot of forethought, a lot of effort went into those remediation projects. And good news is everything worked out. I actually attended a football game, a bowl game on December 31st, and I'm a private pilot, instrument rated private pilot. Flew to Louisiana on that day to watch our football game. My alma mater was playing, and by the time the game was over, on my route back, the clock actually turned. But I had confidence that the air traffic control systems and everything else were all prepared for that. So literally put my life in my hands in my airplane that day. But
Now
yeah,
that's confidence.
yeah, but was not a hoax, I can assure you.
So let's shift gears here a moment. Every guest that comes on the show, I like to ask what I call is their superpower. That's one thing that stands them apart. Now, Gerard, you've got a background that's pretty rare. You've come up through Arthur Anderson, which for the younger folks listening is that firm that became Accenture. And you told me your superpower is the ability to fuse technical, financial, and interpersonal skills. How did that develop?
Yeah, great question, and it is true. I worked in the division of Arthur Anderson, the consulting division, the division that ultimately spun out after I departed the firm and became Accenture, which, to my knowledge, still is the world's largest digital consulting firm, and takes on. I used to say we take on all the projects nobody else wants. Honestly, that's kind of how they make their money. Honestly, is just taking these high risk projects on. But when I graduated with degrees in accounting and economics, but didn't want to do traditional audit tax work, I had had some taste of computing and computers as an accounting student and really liked it and felt like I excelled at it. And when I learned that Arthur Anderson would hire people right out of college into that consulting division, that group that's now known as Accenture, that excited me. And I had knew a couple of people that worked for them that also attended the same university, were a couple of years ahead of mine and ahead of me, and they encouraged me to consider it. And so I did. I took that. I'm rare in that you graduate in accounting, and in general, you look for the job in one of the big four firms today. Back then, it was Big Eight. That's pretty much understood. That's what you're going to do. That's your goal. But I chose a little different career path. But while I was with Anderson, the personal computer was invented. That's 1981, the IBM personal computer. Everything before that were really more hobbyist kits type personal computers. And it was pretty clear to me that not only was this device, this technology, this new invention going to change the world, but what I always describe as the pivotal moment and the greatest takeaway from that invention was that it represented the first time a company, an organization, could acquire a computer system, an automated solution from a vendor other than the manufacturer. So before that, if you wanted a computer, you had to deal with IBM directly, or Data General, or Digital, or HP, a number of others. But when IBM created the PC, they realized that the business model for that was to sell those through dealers, right? It's what they called them. And that really was really what changed and what created the whole channel. Everything that your listeners typically are familiar with was a result of the invention of that PC. That's what brought it all about. And so I started researching that and realized that, if you want to get involved in that industry, you're going to have to associate with one of the aggregators, is what they called them back then. And those were the corporate organizations that had the relationships with IBM to authorize dealers to sell IBM PCs. And so I hitched up with MicroAge as our franchisor. Back then, you had Computerland, Entree, Connecting Point, MicroAge, and MicroAge seemed to fit our business philosophy and just the solutions that they were selling. That's how I started life in that. But what I brought with me was all that academic background in accounting and business, and honestly, our business plan and the premise of our business was to help small and mid-sized businesses automate their back office. Remember back then it was all manual, so
Hmm.
you wouldn't find a company today that hand writes invoices as an
Right.
example. It doesn't matter what the organization is. There's some software for it today, some automated tool for that purpose.
Definitely.
Back then, that wasn't the case. So we were literally selling small and mid-sized businesses their very first computers. But I could go in and talk the language of accounting and business because that's what we did. We focused on implementing accounting systems, just the basic blocking and tackling back office. And I could speak that language to the controller or the accountants or the business owners, but I also understood the technology aspect, skills that I gained while working for Anderson, mainly working on mainframes. And so I fused those two skill sets, and that stood out in the market, fortunately, and that was well received. Typically, the dealers back then of PCs didn't understand the business part of this. They understood the technical part, and the business people didn't understand the technical part. And I could have equivalent conversations with both sides, and I was blessed in that respect. And really, that was the driver of our success.
Cool. So, before we go, I have to ask you about what you're working on now, because from what I understand, it's pretty exciting. You mentioned something like you're helping your state and country leverage the power of AI. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so I was appointed to serve on the state of Mississippi's Artificial Intelligence Task Force last year. This was an appointment from legislation signed into law by the governor to create this task force. And so legislative leadership, and it prescribed, by the way, in that legislation, the composition of the members of the task force, and it allowed legislative leadership to pick someone from the business community and from the technology community to also represent those respective stakeholders in these efforts. And I was selected. I was blessed to be selected by our legislature to serve in the business role. We had about 6 meetings last year. Really good, had lots of subject matter experts, and that culminated with the creation of about a 54-page report to our legislature on how the state could leverage artificial intelligence and perhaps some of the risks and some of the concerns and some of the regulations we may need around that. I've also got to share that I was nominated back in August and still waiting on the final go ahead on that to serve on the National Institute of Standards and Technology's Artificial Intelligence Advisory Committee, and that's part of the U.S. Department of Commerce. I have found out I've made it through all the vetting process and the White House liaison. I'm waiting just for a memo from the Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, to join that committee. And its responsibility is to literally advise the administration and the White House on all matters related to AI. So pretty excited about that. Again, bringing more of the business perspective than the technical perspective. That's my role on both of these groups.
Wow, that's super interesting, and it sounds like it ties right back into your superpower of fusing technical and financial and interpersonal skills together. So, Gerard, for anybody listening who would want to connect with you, hear more about your insights, or even learn more about your show, where should they go?
Yeah, they can check out the website supertalk.fm. Real simple web address, and you'll see an entry on the website about my show. It's Middays with Gerard. It's 10 to 1 Central Time, Monday through Friday. They'll see information about our text line. If they'd like to text into the show, you'll see my email address as well on there if they'd like to connect. And by the way, it's broadcast off air, on air, across the network in Mississippi. By the way, SuperTalk Mississippi is the only statewide radio network in the country. There's not another radio network that covers their entire state. There are 13 stations in this network. So we're over the air in every corner of the state of Mississippi, 10 to 1 every
Wow.
day. And about 120,000 at any point in time tuned in, they estimate. All the shows are archived. They're also distributed and published on all the various podcast sites. And even if they don't live in Mississippi, they can go online and listen to us. It's streamed on YouTube. There's also a SuperTalk app that they can download and listen or watch because the show is even radio these days, as you know, is video streamed. So 3 hours a day, 10 to 1. I just completed the show today, interviewed the Mississippi State Senate Chair of Appropriations and the individual in charge of the committee, the Workforce Development Committee in the Mississippi House. So I interview political subjects almost every day. Yesterday, I interviewed the president of the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. That's a Washington think tank that focuses on just what the title of the organization says. So, yeah, it's daily.
Wow, that's great to hear. So, are you also on LinkedIn?
I am. You can find me, Gerard Gibert, my name on LinkedIn. And I'm also a regular guest, Jim, on the Newsmax network. I appeared this past Sunday morning live on Newsmax on Wake Up America, the Wake Up America show. So usually once or twice a week, I'm a guest, usually a panelist on Newsmax, but have a LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram site as well.
Love it. So, we'll drop links in the show notes too. So, check the show notes if you're listening, and be sure to turn into so it's Middays with Gerard. Uh, I don't think you'll be disappointed. And so that's a wrap of another episode of Profits of IT. I've had a blast with you, Gerard. Thank you for coming and sharing today. And until next time, and before we sign off, if you're an IT company owner and looking to escape the unpredictable feast and famine cycles of referrals, be sure to check out managedprospectingsystem.com. Jim Punzenberger here. Until next time, stay hydrated and caffeinated. Bye for now.